A poor mother's secret gift left everyone in tears. Ma'am, please don't throw that away. The sentence cut through the noise of the crowded mall like a soft cry hidden under thunder. A young employee in a red uniform stood beside the trash can, holding out his hand as if trying to stop a disaster. The wealthy woman, diamonds heavy on her wrist, perfume sharp in the air, looked offended that anyone had spoken to her. In her hand was a small, crumpled, brown paper bag, old, folded neatly, worn at the edges, meaningless to her, but behind her, standing quietly with her head bowed low, was Ruth, a poor black mother in a faded supermarket apron, clutching the straps of her bag with trembling fingers. Her shoes were worn thin, her hair was tied back loosely, her posture said she was used to shrinking, used to being ignored, used to carrying more weight than her body was ever built to hold. The rich woman rolled her eyes. "It's just garbage," she said, dropping the bag toward the trash. But the employee shook his head urgently. "No, ma'am, it belongs to her." He pointed gently at Ruth. Ruth froze. Her eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face as if the world had suddenly turned all its lights on her. She didn't expect anyone to notice. She never expected anyone to defend her. People rarely notice poor mothers like her, especially mothers who worked in silence and kept their hearts tucked away like fragile things. The rich woman scoffed and thrust the bag toward Ruth. "You forgot this. Keep better track of your things." But when Ruth reached for it, her hands shook so hard she almost dropped it. The bag wasn't just a bag. It was the one thing she protected more fiercely than anything she owned. Inside it, wrapped in cloth, was her secret gift, the one she'd been working on for months, stitching at night by candlelight while her body ached from shifts no human deserved. A gift she couldn't give yet. A gift she wasn't ready to reveal. The rich woman watched her with judgment, not curiosity. "Honestly," she muttered, "if you're going to bring personal junk to work, at least hide it." Ruth lowered her head. "Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am." But the employee stepped forward again, voice softer now. "You don't have to apologize for something important." Ruth's heart stuttered, because no one, not one single person in years, had ever spoken to her like that, and she had no idea that before the day ended, the entire mall would know what was in that little brown bag. And they would never forget it. Ruth held the little brown paper bag to her chest the way someone protects a heartbeat. She didn't clutch it tight out of fear someone would steal it. She held it because the world had a way of breaking things that mattered, and she couldn't let this one break. Not this. Not after everything she had poured into it in the quiet hours when hope was the only thing keeping her awake. The wealthy woman shook her head in disbelief and turned away, heels clicking sharply against the mall floor like judgment echoing behind her. She didn't look back, didn't notice the tremble in Ruth's hands, didn't notice the way Ruth hid the bag beneath her apron as if shielding it from the world's eyes. The young employee, maybe 19, maybe 20, stepped closer, wiping his hands on his uniform nervously. He had kind eyes, the kind that looked at people instead of through them. "Ma'am," he said softly, "why are you holding it like it's something sacred?" Ruth's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever asked her that. People asked about schedules, groceries, tasks, problems. No one asked about the things she carried close to her heart. She opened her mouth, but her voice came out in a whisper. "Because it is." The boy blinked. "Is it expensive?" Ruth let out a tiny, sad smile. "No, it's not worth $1. "Then why?" She hugged the bag tighter. "It's worth love." Before he could ask more, a mall supervisor approached, tall, irritated, the type who treated employees like numbers instead of people. "Ruth," he barked. "Break's over. Customers are waiting." Ruth nodded quickly, her shoulders shrinking. "Yes, sir. Coming." The boy frowned. She just got yelled at for something she didn't even do. The supervisor rolled his eyes. "She's always distracted, always hiding something. If she wants to keep her job, she better get her act together." His gaze landed on the brown bag. "And that thing doesn't belong on shift." Ruth instinctively stepped back, shielding it. "Please," she whispered. "It's all I have." The supervisor scoffed. "Then store it in your locker." Now, Ruth's heart cracked. She couldn't put it in a locker. Lockers got slammed, kicked, checked. Things got crushed. She shook her head weakly. Sir, it's fragile. The boy stepped forward. Sir, it really. Stay out of it. The supervisor snapped. She can obey or she can go home. Ruth's hands trembled. Her throat tightened. She looked at the little bag, then at the floor. Okay, she whispered. She took one step toward the employee lockers, her vision blurring, her heart pounding, as if she were walking her secret gift straight into danger. But just before she reached the door, a small voice behind her said, Wait, I want to see what's inside that bag. Ruth froze. So did everyone else, because that voice didn't belong to an employee. It belonged to someone whose presence stopped the entire hallway, the mall owner's daughter. Ruth turned slowly, her breath caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. Standing a few feet away was Amelia Carter, the mall owner's only daughter, mid-20s, expensive coat, flawless makeup, and a confidence that followed her like a perfume trail. People stepped aside when she walked. Managers straightened. Employees froze. She wasn't cruel. She just lived in a world where doors opened before she touched them, a world where nothing fragile ever had to be protected. Amelia stepped forward, her heels soft on the polished floor. But her eyes weren't sharp like her mother's or cold like the supervisor's. Her eyes were curious, almost gentle. I said. She repeated quietly, I want to see what's inside the bag. The supervisor stiffened immediately. Miss Carter, with respect. She didn't even look at him. I didn't ask you. The boy beside Ruth swallowed nervously. Miss Carter, it's something important to her. I can see that, Amelia said. Eyes still fixed on Ruth. That's why I'm asking. Ruth's heart thudded painfully. No one at the mall had ever looked at her like she mattered. No one had ever cared what she carried, what she felt, what she hid. Her hands tightened around the brown bag. Miss Carter, she whispered shakily, it's not. Ready? Amelia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Ready? For what? Ruth looked down, cheeks warm with embarrassment. For who it's meant for. The supervisor folded his arms. Ruth, don't waste her time. Show her or put it away. But Amelia turned sharply toward him. Do you always order people around when they're scared? He blinked, stunned silent. Ruth's eyes widened. No one had ever spoken up for her. Not like that. Not with authority. Not with power. Amelia stepped closer. You said it's fragile. You said it's all you have. And you said it's for someone special. Her voice softened even more. So, whatever's in that bag, it's worth seeing. Ruth took one shaky breath, her fingers trembling at the top fold of the bag. But her heart screamed no. It wasn't time. She wasn't ready. The person meant to receive this gift. They didn't even know what she was sacrificing. She whispered, barely audible, I can't show it. Not yet. Amelia tilted her head. Why not? Ruth lifted her eyes, tears brimming. Because if I open it now, I'm afraid it will break before it reaches who needs it most. Amelia's expression changed, softened, deepened, like she was starting to understand something bigger. But before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the mall. People gasped. Someone screamed. A child started crying. The boy grabbed Ruth's arm. What was that? The supervisor cursed. Not today. Amelia turned toward the sound, her face tightening, and then, without warning, she grabbed Ruth's hand. Come with me, she said. Now, Ruth stumbled forward, clutching the brown bag as if the whole world were about to fall on it. She had no idea that what happened next would force her secret to the surface and leave everyone in tears. Amelia didn't give Ruth a chance to hesitate. Her hand closed around Ruth's wrist with surprising warmth. Not rough, not forceful, just steady enough to say, trust me. The crowd ahead began shifting like a wave, people stepping back, whispering, gasping. Something had happened near the fountain in the center of the mall, something loud enough to shake the whole atmosphere. Ruth clutched her brown bag to her chest with her free hand as Amelia guided her quickly through the corridor. The young employee followed behind them, breathless, while the supervisor hurried after Amelia like a shadow terrified of losing his job. Miss Carter, he called out, voice cracking, you shouldn't be in the middle of Amelia shot him a look sharp enough to slice his sentence in half. I go where my people are, she said. All of them. It was the first time Ruth realized something. Amelia didn't walk like she owned them all. She walked like she was responsible for it. The crowd opened just enough for them to see what caused the crash. A large decorative sign had fallen, heavy, wooden, splintered. Beneath it sat a young boy, maybe 7 or 8, crying and holding his leg. A woman, his mother, knelt beside him, panicked and shaking. My baby, she kept whispering, trying to lift the sign, but unable to move it an inch. Amelia's eyes widened. He's stuck. The supervisor blurted, "We need security." "No," Amelia said sharply. "We need hands." She dropped to her knees beside the mother without hesitation. The moment she touched the broken sign, she hissed. It was heavier than it looked. She tried again, bracing her foot, gripping harder. Still no movement. "Help me," she called out. Someone. People watched. People whispered. But no one moved. Not until Ruth stepped forward. Her hands shook. But not from fear. From courage fighting its way up through years of being unseen. "I'll help you," she said softly. The supervisor scoffed. "Ruth, you can't lift that." Amelia snapped. "Let her speak." Ruth knelt beside Amelia, setting her brown bag carefully on the ground as if placing a newborn down to rest. She pressed her palms against the wood. "On 3, she whispered. Amelia nodded. 1, 2, 3. They lifted. The sign shifted, just enough. The boy cried louder. "Terrified?" "Again," Ruth said, her voice stronger this time. 1, 2, 3, lift. This time the sign rose high enough for the mother to pull her son free. He collapsed into her arms, sobbing, shaking, but safe. The crowd cheered. Someone recorded. Someone clapped. Someone whispered, "I can't believe she lifted that." But Amelia wasn't looking at the sign. She was looking at Ruth, really looking. "You saved him," she breathed. Ruth shook her head, breath trembling. "No, we did." And then, just as Ruth reached down to pick up her precious brown bag, she saw it. The bag had torn, just a little, just enough dot, and a soft piece of fabric, delicate, hand-stitched, full of love, peeked out from the tear. Amelia's eyes widened. Ruth's heart stopped. Her secret, the one she protected with her whole soul, was seconds away from spilling into the open dot. Ruth froze, her breath trapped somewhere between her ribs, and her heart break. She stared at the torn brown bag like it was bleeding. Like something alive inside it had been cut open. Amelia saw the flash of panic cross Ruth's face, and before anyone else could notice, she gently knelt down and picked up the little bag, holding it with both hands as delicately as if it contained glass. "Don't worry," Amelia whispered. "I won't open it." But the tiny piece of fabric peeking out refused to hide. A soft pastel color, hand-stitched edges, the kind of stitching only someone who worked in silence, with love instead of money, could create. The young boy they had rescued was safe now, crying softly into his mother's shoulder while the crowd slowly dispersed. But the only sound Ruth heard was her own heartbeat, fast, uneven, terrified. Amelia looked up at her. "Ruth, please, tell me what this is." Ruth swallowed hard, shaking her head. "It's nothing, just something I made, something I can't let get ruined." "It's not nothing," Amelia said, her voice softer than anyone expected from a girl raised in luxury. "I saw the way you protected it. I saw the way you held it. That's not how someone holds a thing. That's how someone holds a memory." Ruth's eyes filled instantly. She looked away, wiping one cheek with the back of her hand. "You don't understand. I made this for someone who's never had anything beautiful. Not once. Not from me. Not from life." Amelia's expression shifted, curiosity melting into something deeper, something almost protective. "Then let me understand," she whispered. The supervisor stepped forward, irritated. "This is ridiculous. It's just some old." He reached for the bag, and Ruth reacted like lightning. "No," she cried, grabbing it to her chest so fast that everyone flinched, even Amelia. The mall went silent. The boys' crying stopped. Even the escalator hum felt quieter. Ruth's voice cracked. "You can take my hours. You can take my job. But you will not touch what's in this bag." The supervisor blinked, stunned. Amelia's hand rested gently on Ruth's arm. Nobody is taking it, I promise. Ruth closed her eyes, trembling, the weight of years pressing against her, and then she whispered the words no one expected. It's a gift. For my daughter. Amelia frowned. Your daughter. Ruth nodded. Tears spilling now. My little girl. She's in the hospital. She hasn't walked in months. And tomorrow. Tomorrow is her birthday. Amelia's breath hitched. The young employee covered his mouth. Even the supervisor stepped back. Ruth opened the torn bag just a little. Enough for Amelia alone to see what was inside. And Amelia gasped. Because inside that old, wrinkled paper bag was the most beautiful hand-stitched dress she had ever seen in her life. Amelia stared at the tiny dress, her breath trembling like she'd just seen something holy. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't polished. It wasn't store perfect. But it was beautiful in the way only love-made things can be. Soft pastel fabric, hand-sewn seams, tiny embroidered flowers that were uneven but filled with soul, the kind of imperfections that make something priceless. Ruth held the dress gently, her fingers brushing over the threads the way a mother touches her child's cheek. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. I stitched this at night, she whispered. After my shifts, after the world stopped caring, after my body stopped wanting to move. Some days I could barely keep my eyes open, but I kept sewing. Amelia's throat tightened. Ruth, why didn't you buy one? You could have found something cheaper. Ruth shook her head, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Store dresses don't feel like hope. Amelia swallowed. Hope. Ruth nodded slowly. My daughter. She hasn't stood on her own feet for months. The doctors say she may never walk again. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. But tomorrow is her 9th birthday, and I want her to feel like she can still be anything. Still be beautiful. Still be seen. Amelia covered her mouth, emotion overwhelming her. The supervisor looked away, blinking fast. The young employee wiped a tear from his cheek. People nearby who had overheard went completely still, as if a sacred truth was unfolding in front of them. Ruth continued, each word trembling with memories. We used to make dresses together out of scrap fabric. She'd sit on my lap and pretend she was a designer. She always said, Mama, one day I'll walk into a room wearing something you made. Her voice broke. Now she can't walk into any room at all. Amelia stepped closer, eyes soft, full of compassion no money could buy. Ruth, this dress. It's not just fabric. Ruth clutched it tighter. I stitched hope into every thread. I stitched prayers. I stitched the pieces of myself I thought I lost. The crowd around them was silent, breath held. But then, the supervisor did something no one expected. He sighed heavily, rubbing the back of his neck, and muttered, Ruth, why didn't you tell anyone? Ruth lifted her eyes. Tired, breaking, brave. Because people don't listen when poor mothers speak. The room froze. Every eye in the mall turned to her. Amelia felt her entire world shift under her feet. But the biggest shock wasn't the dress. It wasn't the confession. It wasn't the tears. It was what Amelia said next. A sentence that changed everything. Ruth, take me to your daughter. Ruth stared at Amelia as if she'd spoken a language the world had forgotten. What? She whispered. Take you. To my daughter. Amelia nodded. Eyes steady. Voice soft but firm. The kind of tone you use when you've already made the decision in your heart. If she deserves magic tomorrow, she said, then we're going to give her more than magic. The supervisor stepped forward, panicked. Miss Carter, you can't just walk out of the mall with. Amelia raised a single hand. He shut up instantly. She turned to Ruth again. Where is she? Which hospital? Ruth's throat tightened. St. Mary's Children's Ward. Amelia didn't blink. Then we're going there. Right now. Ruth shook her head desperately. No. You don't understand. I can't leave my shift. If I walk out, I'll lose my job. I already missed hours last week because she got sick. I can't afford. Amelia stepped closer and gently placed her hands on Ruth's shoulders. Careful, warm, grounding. You won't lose anything, she whispered. Not today. Then she turned to the supervisor with a calm that carried more power than shouting ever could. She's off shift. The supervisor blinked. But we're short-staffed, and I own this mall. Amelia asked. Yes, Mum. Then she's off shift. The supervisor swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Ruth pressed a hand to her mouth. Tears spilling. Miss Carter, why are you doing this? Amelia's eyes softened in a way that made even the lights above them seem warmer. Because my whole life, I've been surrounded by people who had everything, and felt nothing. She glanced at the tiny dress pressed against Ruth's heart. But today, I saw someone who had nothing, and loved with everything. The young employee stepped forward. Miss Carter, can I come too? I want to help. Amelia smiled gently. Yes, come. The four of them moved through the mall together, Ruth in the center, clutching the dress like a lifeline, Amelia walking beside her like a shield, the young employee behind them like a loyal little brother, the supervisor trailing awkwardly a few steps back. As they crossed the entrance, Amelia whispered, She thinks she'd just get a dress tomorrow. She looked at Ruth with a soft smile. But she's about to get a room full of people who finally see her mother. Ruth's knees weakened. Her voice broke. I don't know how to thank you. Amelia squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to. Just let us love her with you. They stepped into the sunlight outside, but none of them knew what waited at the hospital doors, because the moment they arrived, Ruth's world would shatter in a way nobody expected. The automatic hospital doors slid open with a soft hiss, but the moment Ruth stepped inside, her breath collapsed. Her knees buckled, the hand holding the dress shook violently. Amelia caught her before she fell. Ruth, what's wrong? Ruth pointed ahead with trembling fingers. Her voice broke open. She's not in her room, her daughter's room, the one with little paper stars taped to the walls. The one where Ruth spent nights crying into thin blankets, was empty. Bed perfectly made, machine silent. No child, no toys. No trace of her little girl. No, no, no. Ruth whispered, the world spinning. She was here this morning. She was here. A nurse rushed over. Miss Brooks. Ruth whipped around, desperate. Where is my daughter? What happened? Please tell me she's okay. The nurse smiled, a soft, glowing smile that didn't match the panic in Ruth's chest. She's fine. Better than fine. She's in the therapy room. Something unbelievable happened an hour ago. Ruth blinked. What do you mean? The nurse gently touched her arm. She stood. Silence. Then a sob clawed out of Ruth's throat. She stood. The nurse nodded, emotion sparkling in her eyes. Only for a moment, only a few seconds. But it's the first time in months, the doctor said it was like. Her spirit woke up today. Ruth covered her mouth, tears falling uncontrollably. Amelia and the young employee exchanged stunned, tear-wet glances. Can we see her? Amelia whispered. The nurse led them down the hall, each step heavy with hope and fear woven together. When she opened the therapy room door, sunlight poured in like a blessing, and there, holding onto the rail, legs trembling but determined, stood Ruth's tiny daughter, hair in messy curls, eyes wide with pride. Mama. She cried. Look. I did it. Ruth dropped the dress and fell to her knees, sobbing, laughing, shaking all at once. She crawled toward her daughter and wrapped her arms around her, holding her like she was holding life itself. You stood. Ruth cried. Baby, you stood. Her daughter nodded against her shoulder. I tried because I felt like something special was coming today. Ruth pulled back, eyes full of wonder. Something special. Amelia picked up the fallen dress gently, dusting it off. It was this, she whispered. She felt her mother's love before she ever saw the gift. The little girl gasped when she saw the dress. Mama, did you make that for me? Ruth nodded through tears. Every stitch, baby. Every single one. The girl hugged the dress to her chest. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Amelia stepped forward, placing a warm hand on Ruth's back. She didn't just feel hope. Ruth. Her voice softened. She stood on it. Ruth sobbed again, overwhelmed. Her daughter pressed her forehead to hers. I love you, Mama, and as sunlight wrapped around them, mother, child, strangers, now turned family, Ruth finally understood the truth she had lived without knowing. Sometimes the gift you make in silence comes back louder than every pain you survived.